Welcome to my channel. I'm Olivia, and today I'm going to take you on a little journey through my room, explain my decorating aesthetic, and explain how to use different layers to design your space no matter what your style is. So I woke up this morning nice and early, expecting to film and take pictures of my room with the sunlight streaming through the window and give you this really golden hour Pinterest-worthy shot of my room, but the weather had other plans. It was gloomy and there was lightning and thunder and rain, so it didn't exactly go as planned. So I've decided to play into the cozy vibes that the weather had in store for us and just take you on a slow and relaxing room tour. So let's get into it. My room's aesthetic is mainly inspired by my own personality, my hobbies, and my interests, some of which include surfing, skateboarding, and marine biology. I find that this is a great way to really find your own unique decorating style. I came up with the phrase eclectic surf shack to embody my personal design aesthetic. I really like coming up with a phrase or a few keywords that describe the look that I'm going for when I'm decorating a space, because it really helps me keep on track when I'm actually buying pieces and just overall achieve a really well put together look. I also have the tendency to flip back and forth between more maximalist and minimalist depending on what I'm inspired by at the moment. Sometimes I feel the urge to take some pieces out and go full on Zen minimalist, and then other times I add more pieces back in and go more of a maximalist route. I love the flexibility that I have with this, and I have the freedom of changing up my look while still keeping to my eclectic surf shack aesthetic. Some things that inspire me are bright colors, vintage 1970s interiors. Obviously, the beach and the ocean are both huge components to my decor style, as well as nature. One of the things that really inspires me about 1970s interiors is the eclectic vibe that they have while still being cohesive and put together, while still having a lot of variation in styles, colors, and textures. I love using color in my decorating. And while I don't feel like I have a specific color palette that I stick to, generally use bright, clear colors. I use hot pinks, bright yellows, and even touches of bright, almost turquoise blue. I feel like I can kind of get away with using so many variations of colors without it becoming overwhelming, since I use all neutral colors in what I like to call my base, which is just the first layer of design, which includes wall color and furniture, and I'll get into that a little more later in the video. I think myself and many other people out there are really attracted to these spaces that they see on Pinterest that are really unrecreatable, meaning they have character and life and really look and feel like all of the pieces in the space have been collected over a long period of time, which in most cases this is true. In my opinion, this creates a much warmer, welcoming, and unique put together space as opposed to one that was put together through a quick makeover using all new pieces from big chain stores. That doesn't mean you can't find some really nice pieces that go with your look at stores like Target, TJ Maxx, places like that. But to get a really unique and well-styled look, DIYs and thrifting are going to be a game changer. I like to think of these chain stores as like the decorating equivalent of fast fashion. Now, this does mean that decorating your space is going to take a lot longer, but decorating is not usually an overnight process like you see on social media. Most spaces that you see that are really unique and well put together and just really amazing looking are ones that have taken quite a while to get to that point. Before we move on to the layers of design, if you're enjoying this video and maybe even feeling a little bit inspired, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe buttons below. Now that I've discussed a little bit about my own decorating style, I'm going to go a little more in depth into what designing a space is like for me. I think of decorating in layers, and these layers are the aspects that I consider when I'm decorating. So the wall color and the furniture is what I like to call the base of my design. For my look, I like to stick with a neutral base. That way I can incorporate lots of color without it feeling overwhelming or like too colorful. I chose a soft, warm white for the walls. I actually chose the color Swiss Coffee by Behr, and I absolutely love it. I just feel like everything that I have really pops against the creamy white color, especially my plants. Another thing you might want to consider if you want to add more color or a textural element to your design is by creating an accent wall. I am a huge fan of accent walls. I've always had an accent wall and I've changed my accent wall many times. I currently have a vertical paneled wall. This adds a unique texture to the overall look of the room and totally gives me that 1970s Surf Shack vibe that I'm so inspired by. When it comes to furniture, I really like playing around with texture again. I don't particularly like the look of like crisp, brand new, fresh furniture, and I know that's just my personal preference. I really love rattan and natural wood and bamboo, but I do try to minimize how much I use just because I have such a small space. I don't want it to become too dark or too overwhelming. So other than my peacock chair and the matching stool, all of my furniture is actually white. So that goes along with my neutral base. I have this old thrifted dresser behind me that the paint is kind of chipping off, And I just absolutely love the rustic element that it brings into my room. It adds texture, and again, it aligns with the surf shack aesthetic that I'm trying to achieve. Textiles are what is going to add the softness to your overall look. This is especially true if you have a lot of white. Adding different textures when it comes to curtains, bedding, and rugs will instantly transform your space and give it a lot of warmth. Even if you're going for the all-white, Scandi aesthetic, the fabrics that you use will play a huge part in preventing your space from looking too lifeless or cold or bare. I almost consider curtains as like part of my base because I always use neutral curtains. I feel like this works best for my look personally, and honestly, most looks, unless you're going for a really colorful or maximalist look. I like to use really soft, flowy, and sheer fabrics for curtains, as opposed to a heavier fabric, which can sometimes tend to look a little more formal, in my opinion. Your bedding can completely change the entire look of your space. It's actually a great way to change things up if you're feeling like you want to refresh your bedroom. Since the rest of my decor is pretty simple, I really wanted to spice things up with my bed and use mix and match bedding. I think it really complements the space well, and the bed is typically going to be the focal point of the bedroom, so it's really important that your bedding goes along with the look that you're trying to achieve. You can do this by playing around with sheets, duvet covers, pillows, even throw blankets, and decorative pillows. I have to say, I am so in love with the look of the all-white linen bedding, but when I tried it out in my room, it just didn't have the same effect that I was hoping for. It just kind of looked bland. So remember to consider your unique decor style when picking out your bedding. So I kind of have a problem when it comes to rugs. I have a whole collection of rugs that I change out when I feel like refreshing my room. I know this is not realistic and I'm not expecting anyone else to do that, but a good rug will really elevate any space. Me personally, I am obsessed with vintage Turkish and Moroccan rugs. I have a few that I've gotten on Etsy, including this amazing hot pink vintage Turkish rug that I found on Etsy. It adds color, it adds texture, it adds warmth, and since it's very clearly vintage, there's something that it adds to the look of my room that just can't be replicated with a new rug. I think we're all in agreement at this point that the overhead big light is just an absolute atrocity. Unfortunately, I have a really ugly fan because I sleep in here, obviously, and I want it to be cold when I sleep. So unless you can get a really great statement light fixture, lamps and other accent lighting are definitely the way to go. I'm loving this whole paper lantern trend going on right now because they go with almost any look, they're super affordable, and they diffuse the light so they create a nice soft light as opposed to the harsh overhead light. I have a couple that I hung over my built-ins that I use instead of the big light. And I also have this paper table lamp as well. I highly recommend investing in at least a couple hue bulbs. These are a total game changer. You can customize the color of the bulb and even the shade of white, whether you want it cooler or warmer. And you can set timers, which is really cool. They are pretty pricey, but I think this is something that is totally worth the splurge, at least for 1 or 2 lamps in your room. Especially in a bedroom, you're gonna want some good mood lighting. Plants are a timeless staple that enhance any decor style. They literally add so much life to your space and create a really finished look, even if your room is nowhere near finished. For example, you can take a totally blank space, white walls, very minimalist furniture, and if you add some plants or even just one bigger statement plant, the room will immediately look so much more finished and put together. Last but not least are the decorative accents and accessories. These are the pieces that you should be collecting over time that really embody your unique personality and even your hobbies. For example, while I'm not using them, I display my surfboard and my skateboards. If you're an artist, you can try to incorporate your art supplies into your decor by displaying your blank canvases, your paints, your paintbrushes. This is just an example of how you can use your personality and your hobbies to actually find your unique decorating style. This also adds a functional element to your space, which in all honesty is very important because unless you have a ton of square footage to work with, most of us don't and need our spaces to be not only aesthetically pleasing, but also functional as well. Using pieces that align with your personality and your hobbies will give you the uniqueness and cohesion of a really well-designed space. Try to steer away from the fast fashion of decorative accents. They could end up taking away from your room as opposed to adding to it. We're not really trying to look like we went on a shopping spree at Hobby Lobby to decorate our space. No offense to Hobby Lobby. We want to embody our own uniqueness and our own style. I feel like I'm using those words a lot, but I can't stress how important it is when you're creating your own design aesthetic. If you made it through to the end of the video, I am personally wishing you the best thrift find of your life because you're awesome, and I want to sincerely thank you for watching my video. I really hope that it inspired you at least a little bit, and maybe you learned some tips that you can take away and create your own design aesthetic.